What is up, YouTube? Eric Vasquez here from Teach Me to Design, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you step by step exactly how I created this dramatic and moody movie poster design using some very cool compositing tricks in Adobe Photoshop. So let's get right into it. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to create a new document here in Photoshop that's 11 inches wide by 17 inches tall with a resolution of 300 pixels per inch and RGB for the color mode. Go ahead and click Create. And the first thing that we want to do is come down here to the adjustment layer icon, choose solid color, and now let's enter a hex value of 272F2E, which is this nice sort of grayish green color. Now I can scrap that background folder by just dragging it down here into the trash, and we're going to go up to the File menu next and choose Place Embedded. And now we're going to bring in the first of 3 free stock images here from Unsplash, starting with this image of the woman here with her arms wrapped around her legs. I'll choose Place to bring this into my document, zoom out a little bit, and then hold the Alt Option key and just drag out from any of the 4 corners to scale her up a bit. Now, what's really great about using the File Place Embedded method for importing images is that you'll see it already has the file name in here and it's already set up as a smart object, so it just saves you a couple of steps. All right, so now let's go ahead and return to the adjustment layer icon at the bottom, add a hue saturation adjustment layer, and I'm going to boost the saturation up to around 27 just to bring out those colors. Go back down to the adjustment layer icon, this time add a black and white adjustment layer, and we'll change the blend mode from normal to soft light, and then reduce the opacity to somewhere around 40%, and that's going to give us some nice contrast there. Now let's add one more adjustment layer here. We'll add a curves adjustment to the top, and I'm just going to minimize that a little bit so that I can see my curves. All right, and I'll add a point somewhere in the middle here, and I'm just going to drag it down so the input is set to around 154, and then I want the output set to about 100 or so. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just grab all these layers, put them into a group folder, and I'll just call it Talent. Right, this is where the star of our movie is going to be living for now. All right, so once we've done that, we'll go back to the File menu, choose Place Embedded again, and we're now going to bring in our next image, which is this nice picture of the raindrops on the glass with the city in the background. I'll zoom out a little bit again, hold the Alt Option key, and just scale this up so that the image completely fills the canvas and we don't see these little bars here on the bottom. All right, so somewhere around there. Now, what we're going to do from here is change the blending mode from normal to screen so that we can start to see the image of the woman through the picture. All right, but we want to push this a little bit further. So what we're going to do is double click on this image, come down here to where it says Blend If, and if we hold the Alt Option key, we can split these sliders apart. And you'll notice that as I do that, we're starting to blend this image even more. Okay, so what I want to do is maybe set this to somewhere around 50 or so. Looks pretty good. And then we'll go ahead and click OK. Next, let's go up to the Filter menu, and I'm going to choose Sharpen Unsharp Mask. And you can use the same settings that I'm using here. I've put in an amount of about 83% and a radius of 3.5 pixels with the threshold set to 0. And that's just going to bring out some nice sharpness and details in the rain. So once you've done that, click OK. And then from there, hold the Alt Option key, click on the adjustment layer icon, and add a curves adjustment layer. Now this time, let's check off this box that says Use Previous Layer to create clipping mask, and then click OK. Now again, I'll create a point in the middle here, and this time I'll just type in the values manually. So let's put in an input of 158, output of 112, and that's looking pretty good. Now that we've applied our curves, let's go ahead and select the smart object again, return to the adjustment layer icon, and this time we'll add a hue saturation adjustment layer, and then you can just press either Control or Command if you're on a Mac plus the right bracket key to move that up one spot so that it's above the curves adjustment. So using Command or Control and the left and right brackets allow you to change the positioning of any of your layers over here in the layers palette. So just make sure that the hue saturation layer is on top while still having this little arrow here that indicates it's got a clipping mask on it. Now once you've done that, go ahead and check off this colorize box. And let's move the hue slider to somewhere around 160, 165 or so. Somewhere about there. And then we'll increase the saturation to about 54. All right, so we've got this nice kind of greenish blue color here that's pretty saturated. Next, let's go ahead and click on our smart object again, return to the adjustment layer icon, and this time we're going to add a levels adjustment layer and use the same keyboard shortcut, Command or Control, plus the right bracket key twice to move it to the top of this stack. And here, we're just going to make a subtle move, moving the middle slider a bit to the left, maybe to around 1.12, 1.10 or so, just to lighten up some of those values. All right, so you'll see it's not quite as black in the darker parts of the image. It's bringing out a little bit of those highlights. Now, let's go ahead and select that levels adjustment layer, hold the Shift key and select our smart object with the rain texture, and press Command plus G on the keyboard, and then let's just go ahead and call this rain. Now, what I'm going to do next is apply a layer mask onto the rain folder, press G on the keyboard to get my gradient tool, and make sure that you have a black to transparent gradient selected. Over here, you'll see that I have black on the left side with an opacity of 100%. Right, here we go, 100%. And on the opposite side, I also have black, but now it's at 0% opacity. Okay, and then I'm just going to click and drag from the bottom of the image up to kind of fade that rain out a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is grab this talent folder, press Command J to duplicate it, then Command or Control on a PC and the right bracket to move it on top. And I'm just going to reduce the opacity of this to around 50%. And now I'll double click on that folder, and we're once again going to use the Blend If option. This time we're going to focus on the underlying layer, which is this bottom set of sliders down here. And what I want to do is once again hold the Alt Option key to separate these sliders apart. And we're going to move this bottom right slider, or the set of sliders here, apart until this white slider on the left is set to somewhere in the 80s. I think somewhere around 85 looks pretty good. And then let's go ahead and click OK. So we've now added another copy of our talent on top and blended it even further with the rain. Now from here, what I'll do is add another layer on top, press G to get my gradient tool once again, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. And what I'm going to do is just click and drag inwards from all four of these corners up here just to create a little bit of a vignette. And I'll do it from the bottom as well. All right, and this is just going to help to keep our attention on the center of the image where we want the viewer's eye to be. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and rename this vignette. Press Command A to select all, Command C to copy it, Command G to put it into a folder, and then just paste the same name. And then let's reduce the opacity of the vignette folder to around 60%. We don't need it at 100%, just a little bit. Now let's go back to the File menu, go to Place Embedded, and we'll import our next image here. And this time we're going to use this Annie Sprat texture, which is this really cool looking sort of watercolor texture. And again, I'll hold the Alt Option key and just scale this way up, press Return on the keyboard to apply the changes, and then Command or Control plus I to invert the image. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to see which blending mode looks the best, but I kind of like the way either lighten or screen looks here. So I'm going to leave this set to screen for now. Hold the Alt Option key, click on the adjustment layer icon, and now choose Levels. Now here, once again, you'll want to check off this box that says Use Previous Layer to create a clipping mask, and then click OK. For the slider over here, let's bring the left slider in so it's set to around 13. We'll move the middle one until it's set to around 1.2 or 1.23. And then this one on the end, we can just leave as is for now. Now I'm going to select that smart object again, return down here to the adjustment layer icon, and this time add a hue saturation adjustment layer. Now, just like before, I'll add this layer above the levels adjustment by pressing Command in the right bracket. And then I'm just going to change the hue a little bit. Let's see what looks good here. Yeah, let's move that to 172, and the saturation to around 59 or 60, somewhere in that ballpark. And what happens if we colorize that? I'm curious here how that will look. Maybe let's see. Yeah, let's go with that. So it still feels like it's kind of in the same realm, right? It feels harmonious. It's still picking up some of the same colors there. Okay, and now what we can do is select that hue saturation adjustment layer, hold Shift and select the smart object texture, then press Command G to put it into a folder, and we'll just go ahead and call this top texture. And then I'm going to apply a layer mask, and this time press G on the keyboard, click and hold from the top of the image and drag down so that it fades that texture out at the top. And for the rest of it, we're just going to bring that opacity way down. We don't need it to be so intense. Somewhere around 45, and then the fill can be set to 75 or so. And if you want to modify that layer mask a little bit more, you can just click this link here between the mask and the group folder. Make sure you have the mask selected, not the folder, and then press Command T on the keyboard. And just hold the Shift key and slide this up a little bit. And that's going to extend the mask. Okay, so you get a little bit more texture here on the sides. Just make sure that once you're happy with it, you go ahead and relink those. And that will keep you from making some mistakes later on and moving things around that you don't intend to. Now, before we go any further, I just want to encourage you to go ahead and save your work, just in case anything weird happens or you lose your work. That's the last thing in the world that we want to happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and save this real quick. Now, once you've saved your work, you can see we've got some pretty cool effects happening here where we've got this image blended nicely with the woman. So what I'd like to do next is just open up this talent folder for a second, and I'm going to add a mask to this, I think, because I want to fade out the bottom. So I'll add another solid color adjustment layer, this time solid black, and just place it all the way at the bottom here. See, I guess I shouldn't have deleted that background layer after all. Oh well. I'll select the talent folder, add a layer mask to it, and then just using my gradient tool, just fade out the bottom a little bit here. And then let's go ahead and hold Command and click on that mask icon, select the copy of the talent folder, and then click on the layer mask icon to apply the same layer mask. All right, so now we just have a nice fade happening at the bottom, which allows a little bit of our texture to show through. So now what we're going to do is select all of these layers together, press Command, Option, Shift, and E on the keyboard, or if you are on a PC, I suppose it would be Control, Option, Shift, and E, and that's going to merge all of your layers into one single layer at the very top. Now, what I'm going to do from here is hold the Control key, click on the image, and choose Convert to Smart Object. Now, what we can do, which is really nice, is go up to the Filter menu, and I'm going to apply the Camera Raw filter. Now, I like to do this a lot on movie posters especially, because it's like working with a raw image, right? Where it gives you a lot of control over settings here for your poster, for our design. Now, I like to play around with this a little bit once I'm happy with the composition, because obviously, you know, things are merged together. So I tend to just do this towards the end once I'm happy with how things are looking. So while this isn't completely set in stone, you don't have to use the exact same settings I'm using here. I do want to encourage you to experiment with this because it really helps a lot when you're trying to get that finished look to your work. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just play around with these sliders a little bit. Maybe set the temperature to +3 to add a bit of yellow. Set the tint to -10 to bring in a bit of green. And I'm actually going to drop the contrast here a little bit, maybe down to like -24, 25, because I want to lighten up some of those shadows. Now for the black setting here, let's go ahead and bring that up a little bit to 16, 15, or 16. And then what I'm going to do is experiment with the clarity. Now this is almost like doing like a high pass or a sharpening on your image, and you'll see if I crank it all the way up, it just looks almost like some crazy HDR image. But what I want to do here is actually bring it the other way to around -15 or 16, somewhere in that ballpark. And that's just going to add like a little bit of a blur that makes it look more convincing, as if we were actually looking at this woman through the window. And then let's increase the vibrance a little bit, maybe to 14, 15%. And just reduce the saturation to around -10 or 12. Now remember, this isn't an exact science. I do encourage you to play around here like I was saying before, but somewhere around there feels pretty good. So now I'm just going to go ahead and click OK to apply those changes, and you'll see the difference. All right, so if I zoom out for a second, you can see the before and the after, how it just makes it feel a little bit more like moody and dramatic, right? It really enhances the image quite a bit. So let's just go ahead and rename this Camera Raw, and we're going to keep that layer on top of everything else. So now that our poster is looking pretty good, I think it's time that we add some text. So let's go ahead and create a new layer here, and we need a title for our movie. So let's press T on the keyboard to get our type tool, and we'll click somewhere down here on the bottom, and I'm going to just type out the word behind, And I'm going to use this nice free font that I picked up from dafont.com, and I'll leave a link to that in the description so that you can download it and follow along as well. And we just want to make sure that it has a solid white fill color. And then let's go ahead and play around with the size here a bit. All right, I'll press Command T to do a free transform and just scale this down just a bit. And then I'm going to change the tracking here to about 25. All right, just to add a little bit of space here between each of the individual letters. Now, once I've done that, I'll press Command J to duplicate it, then Command in the left bracket to move that layer down. Press Command T to do a free transform, hold Shift and drag down. Press T once again and change this from behind to glass. Okay, now at this point, I'm just going to slide this over a little bit so that the L and the I kind of line up. All right, and then I'll press Command J once again to make another copy. This time hold Shift and slide this copy to the left. Press T and double click or triple click inside here to change the text and highlight the whole word. And now we're going to change it to the. All right, so still leaving the white fill, press Command and A to select all. And then we're going to increase the tracking here from 25 to around 225 and scale this way down. All right, maybe to around 78, 80%. And what I'm going to do here is just try to line it up with the B on the left side. Drag it down here so that it's horizontally centered with the word glass. Okay, and then I'm going to hold the Command key, select the word glass, so I've got this whole bottom line of text selected. Hold the Shift key and just tap this up, all right, to move it closer to the word behind. Now I can select all three of those layers while holding Shift. Just scale them down a bit here, right, so that it's nice and centered on the bottom. And then we can just move this up a little bit more. Right, and that's starting to look pretty good, but I want to do something to make this a little more interesting here. So let's go ahead and select all three of our text layers, put them into a group folder and call it TT for title treatment. And what I'm going to do now is blend them together. So we'll be using the same sort of approach that we used earlier on when we were blending the rain with the woman inside. So here, again, for the underlying layer, I'm going to hold the Alt Option key and separate these sliders on the left. And as I start to bring this in, you'll see, if I zoom in a little bit here, you'll see that our text is starting to blend nicely with the rain and with the image behind it. So let's go ahead and bring in that other slider a little bit as well, maybe to around 10 or 11 here. And then the second slider can be set to around 67, 68. And that's looking pretty good. So I'll go ahead and click OK to apply those changes. And now what I'd like to do is open up that TT folder for a second, hold the Command or Control on a PC plus the Shift key, click on each of those layer thumbnail icons so that you've got all of your text selected. And then I'm going to create a new layer, make sure that white is your foreground color, and press Alt Option Delete on the keyboard to fill that selection with white. Now, what I'm going to do is hold the Alt Option key and add a layer mask. And what that's going to do is create an inverted mask so that now, instead of painting with black to remove any parts of this image, it's already filled with black, right? So I'm going to use a solid white color with a large soft brush set to around 20% opacity. And now I can begin to bring in a few areas that are just getting a tad bit lost here. So I'm just going to lightly brush over some of these areas here to help some of the words stand out that we're getting a little bit lost. And this also helps to give a little bit of variation to the text as well. Now, once you're happy with the way that's looking, select that top layer plus your TT group folder, put it in another folder, and let's just go ahead and call this copy. Now, in order to take this a little bit further, I think I would need to create a little bit of space at the bottom here to put in our credit block. Now, there's a really great template that I used here, which I'll put a link for in the description below, but let me just open it up so I can show you how that looks. All right, so here we have our basic credit block, which is just a nice detail to add to any movie poster. And I'll leave a link for this, like I said, in the description so that you can check it out, download it, and follow along. But what I'm looking to do here is select all of the text, center it, and maybe just get rid of this last line here on the bottom. I think 3 lines is enough. Okay, and then I'll just scale it up a bit. So I'll press Command T to do a free transform, hold the Alt Option key and scale it up a bit. And then we're just going to hold Shift and slide it over so that it's centered in the composition. Now from here, let's change the fill color, maybe from solid white to something like the hex value 3F967E. And then I'll just reduce the opacity a little bit here. You just want to make sure that it's set to around 65%. Okay, and then we can just add this into our copy folder as well. So we've got all of our text sitting nicely in a folder here, and the rest of our poster looking nice behind it. So if you want to, you can just maybe move the title up a little bit more, just to give a little bit of breathing room to the credit block at the bottom. Okay, and make sure to go ahead and save your work. And then what I like to do is just put everything into a group folder called Art or Artwork. All right, and there we have it. There is our nice dramatic movie poster design that we created from scratch using just a few free assets along with a free typeface in Photoshop. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you will be able to apply some of these things into your own work. If you did enjoy it, please go ahead and smash that like button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you never miss a video. Thank you all so much for watching once again. This is Eric Vasquez here for Teach Me to Design, and we'll see you next time.